My name is Julie. I have the privilege of being married to Dave and having 4 adult children, and I love the city of Prague. I love being here. I want to tell you my story. Before I decided to follow Jesus Christ, my life was filled with brokenness and sadness. As a child, my father decided to leave my mother and sister and I for another woman, and he left us. And it left me feeling very confused and angry and broken inside. And I struggled with that for many years. And when I was a younger child in middle school, I attended a church camp where the leader shared some truths from the Bible. And it turns out that we all are broken. We are all broken and born into a broken world. But that is not how God wanted it to be. God created a beautiful world for us. He provided for all of our needs. But the best thing was that He wanted to walk with us. He wanted to have a relationship with us. And He only gave us one rule. But Adam and Eve decided that they didn't want to follow that one rule, that it wasn't enough to be with God. They wanted to be like God and to make their own rules and to have dominion over themselves. And so sin entered our world. That's what this leader explained, and that we were all broken. And that really resonated with me. I understood that brokenness. I understood how a family could be happy and whole and then broken apart in an instant. And so my heart began to be stirred, and I really began to listen and lean in to what comes next. I understand the brokenness, but what comes next? And so that leader shared again from the Bible that God had always planned to bring us back to Him, to make that brokenness right. But it took a great sacrifice. It took sending His Son, Jesus Christ, who lived a perfect life, sinless. Can you imagine that? I have 4 children, and I never taught any of my children to say no or mine. They just said it. They were born with a sin nature, and we all were born that way. But Jesus never sinned. He was perfect. And then He chose to go to the cross and to pay the penalty for our sin by dying in our place. And that just broke my heart, but also made me so full of hope that God made a plan for me. And it wasn't just that He died and He was put in a grave, but then He rose again. And that means that He conquered death, that no longer do we have to fear death or sin, but that we will now spend eternity with God. And that was what my soul was longing for. And that may be what your soul is longing for. But that is the truth of God. That is the truth found in the Bible. And that was the truth that changed my life. I have continued to try to learn to walk with God. And what that looks like is just knowing God. In order to know God, we just have to read His Word. He has made Himself known to us. There are other gods in this world that people worship, but no other God has made Himself known to us, who said, "This is who I am." And I have found that God is kind and good and patient and faithful. He's not capricious. He doesn't change His mind. His promises are true. And I have seen His faithfulness in my life over and over and over. And that has built my faith. That has made me trust in Christ more. Another way that I have learned to walk with God is through prayer, just talking to God. He knows my thoughts. I'm not fooling Him. So I just tell Him. I tell Him when I'm struggling. I tell Him when I need Him. I tell Him what my heart longs for. I tell Him what I'm thankful for. I tell Him when I see His goodness, and I thank Him for that. And another part of learning to walk with God is to forgive. I have been forgiven greatly by God, but I felt like it was a big hurdle to forgive my father for what he had done, because he wounded me and hurt me and my family. But as I learned who God was, I learned that I had been forgiven greatly by God. And so if Jesus forgave me, Jesus in his perfection, I can forgive my father. And that has set me free. A lot of times we don't forgive, and it really hurts us and not the offender. And what I've seen that produce is a fruit of bitterness and heaviness and death, and not freedom. But Christ has come to set us free. And so even when we forgive others, we experience that forgiveness ourselves. So I have traveled to Prague because I love God and I want the people of Prague to know God. I want them to know that he loves you, that he has come to set you free, that he has come to give you a new life. And all you have to do is trust in him. So would you consider trusting in Christ today?